Hello and welcome back to CSS3 Animations. In this video, we're going to talk about timing functions in CSS3. And this is another transition property that we can add to our animation here to change the timing of the speed. Now, when you've got an animation that's just 0.3 seconds long, it's not animating very much, so we're not really going to see much of a difference in the timing. So before we do that, in order to really illustrate what the differences are between these timing functions, I'm going to exaggerate our animation a little bit. Instead of creating an animation that's 0.3 seconds long, I'm going to create one that's 2 seconds long. So I'm going to change all of these 0.3s here into 2s. And keep in mind that I'm now using a new file. We're now inside the lesson 4 folder, editing the files in that particular folder. So we've basically taken everything that we did in lesson 3, copied it into a new lesson 4 folder, and that's what we're editing now. So we're going to change all of our durations to 2 seconds, and I also want to exaggerate the height. Right now it's just animating down 10 pixels, so it's kind of hard to see what's going on. So for our height, let's say we want to animate it all the way down to 500 pixels tall. And I realize that we wouldn't really do this for a navigation item, but this will really give you a good idea of what these timing functions are doing. Now, if you've ever used Flash before for any period of time, then you're familiar with easing functions, with easing in and easing out of an animation. And that's obviously not tied necessarily just to Flash, but I have a Flash background, so I think sometimes in terms of Flash. But easing into and easing out of an animation involves changing the speed of an animation. And the way I think of it is when you start driving a car, you're not just suddenly going 40 miles an hour. You don't go from 0 to 40 just like that. You have to ease into it. So you start off at 0 miles per hour and your speed gradually increases until you hit 40 miles per hour. And same thing when you're stopping the car. You don't just suddenly come to an abrupt halt or everyone would fly through the windshield. Instead, you have to slow down and come to a stop. So that's the idea of timing functions. You can change the way that it works. Instead of just having one constant speed throughout the entire animation, you can ease into it by starting off slow and then speeding up. You can ease out of it by starting off fast and then slowing down towards the end, or you can actually do both. You can ease in and out so that it starts off slow and ends up slow and gets faster in the middle. And the best way to explain this is really just to show you. So let's take a look at what happens by default. I'm not going to apply any timing functions at all. We're just going to take a look at the default action. So let's save our file here. We'll jump back into Chrome, make sure that we're pointing to lesson 4/index.html, refresh our page, and then hover over one of our buttons. So we can actually see that there's a little bit of easing applied by default. Whenever we hover over a button, it starts off kind of slow and then speeds up as it gets into the animation, and then towards the end, it slows down again. So it's a very smooth animation. It makes for a very pleasant experience. Well, let's take a look at what happens if we jump into our code and change this. So the new property we need to create is called transition-timing-function. And then we're going to set it equal to one of a number of different values. We have a value called ease, a value called ease-in, we have ease-out, we have ease-in-out, and then we have another function called cubic Bezier. And then there's actually one more in addition to that. If we don't want it to change speed at all, if we want a constant speed throughout the entire animation, we would actually assign it a value of linear. So let's actually see what that looks like first. So again, we need to apply the vendor prefixes here. So I'm going to highlight that entire line, copy it, and we'll paste it 3 more times and then add our vendor prefixes here. So -webkit -transition timing function, and then for Mozilla, and then for Opera. Okay, so let's save that, jump back into our file, and then refresh our page. And now let's take a look at the timing of the animation. You'll have to really pay attention to it to see it, but what we're seeing here, let me make sure I refresh it. That still looks like it's easing. Refresh, and there we go. Okay, so now instead of easing in and out of the animations, it's moving at a constant rate. And that's actually a little bit jarring because when it gets to the end of the animation, it just comes to a sudden stop. And as we can see, once it reaches the end, it's kind of a jarring stop. Instead of slowly coming to a stop, it's just moving at the exact same speed throughout the entire animation and then just suddenly coming to a stop at the end. But that is an option and it's there for you if you want it. But let's take a look at our other options. So linear, again, is our first option. Let's go to ease on each of these. Save that, refresh our page, and then take a look at it. So here we're seeing an animation that starts off quickly and then slows down towards the end. So it's kind of an ease out. So let's hover over it one more time and really pay attention to the speed of it. So again, it looks like it's going pretty fast, and then towards the end it slows down a little bit. Okay, so let's jump back into our CSS here and change it to ease-in. So we're going to ease into the animation. Now remember, when you ease in, it's like starting a car. You're going to start off slowly and then speed up. So it'll start off slowly and then the end of the animation will come to an abrupt halt. So we'll save that, refresh our page, and then when we hover over it, we see it starts off slow and then it really speeds up towards the end and then just comes to an abrupt halt. So it starts off slow and then towards the end it speeds up again. So let's take a look at some other options. We also have ease out, which is going to look pretty familiar to us. Let's refresh our page again. Starts off fast, and then it slows down towards the end. So it eases out of the animation. And that's again like taking a car to a complete stop. You have to slow down a little bit before you get to that stop. You can't just suddenly stop or people will die. So that's the ease out function. And then we have one called ease in out. So ease in hyphen out. And we have to change it for each of these browser prefixes. So save that, refresh. So it starts off slow, it speeds up, and then it ends up slow as well. So it starts off slow, speeds up, and then slows down again towards the end. And that's the ease in out. So it's combining the ease in and the ease out function, which is kind of the same thing that the ease function is doing. It's just a lot easier to type ease than it is to type ease in out. So the last one I want to take a look at is cubic hyphen Bezier. So let's just copy that and then paste it over the rest of these. So save our file, refresh our page, and then watch what happens. So this is still an ease out function. It's just slightly different, and it's really hard to tell what the difference is unless you've got them going on right next to each other. But it's just another set of calculations to cause something to ease in and ease out. So again, we're still easing in and easing out. So it looks very similar to the ease in out function and the ease function, but it's just using some different math to get there. So it's slightly different. And it's really just a matter of taste as far as which one you want to use. So again, those are the different options for easing in and easing out. In the next video, we're going to talk about how we can actually animate two different properties at the same time. So again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.